Welcome to Things You Don't Know. Today, we're starting a series that means a great deal to both Dr. Deneen and myself. Going to be talking about Native Americans, about culture, history, spirituality, achievement, misunderstanding, mistreatment, resilience, and survival.
And right at the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say something important. There is no one single Native American story.
Yes, you are so right, Dr. Deneen.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. There are many nations, many peoples, many languages, many traditions, and many histories. So, one thing we're both going to try very hard to do in this series is to be specific whenever we can.
Yes, yes. We don't want to speak in vague generalities if we can help it. We want to talk about specific nations, specific regions, specific languages, and specific traditions whenever possible, because that's really part of showing respect.
And because also one of the long standing problems in the way Native Indigenous peoples have been represented is that they've so often been blurred together, treated like one undifferentiated group, one image, one story, one identity.
And once people get blurred like that, they get misunderstood.
They do. They get misunderstood, they get stereotyped, romanticized, dismissed, feared, and appropriated, sometimes, God help us, all at once.
Yeah. And that leads to eventual erasure, at least in the public imagination.
Exactly. And once people are erased in the imagination, it becomes much easier to erase them from memory, from education, from moral concern, and from the comfortable story a country tells about itself.
Which is one big reason we're doing this series.
It is.
And for me, this is kind of personal. My father grew up near a reservation, and his best friend was the son of a medicine man. So from very early on, I had some sense, even before I had the vocabulary for it, that there was a depth there, a dignity, a humanity there that deserved respect. And I also had a sense that a lot of the larger culture either didn't understand that or didn't care enough to understand it.
And may I say, as a historian and a person, that failure to understand has done enormous damage.
Yes, it really has. And as a psychologist, one of the things I believe very strongly is that when you diminish any part of humanity, you don't just injure the people being diminished, you damage the whole society. You teach people how not to see each other. You teach them how to flatten, how to dismiss, how to live with distortion.
And the frustrating thing is, Dr. Weaver, once that habit gets into a culture, it spreads.
Yes, like a disease. It does. It nearly never stays neatly in one place.
That connects very deeply with why this matters to me, too. As a historian, I've spent a lifetime thinking about the distance between what really happens and what people are taught happened. And that distance matters. It shapes memory, it shapes sympathy, it shapes conscience, it shapes who in any story gets treated as central and who gets treated as incidental at best.
Or invisible.
You're right, Dr. Weaver, or invisible.
And I think that's one of the tragedies here. So many people have learned a version of Native history that is partial at best and deeply misleading at worst.
Yes, a lot of people get comfortable fragments, a few names, a few images, a few school book episodes, maybe the simplified Thanksgiving story, maybe a lesson on westward expansion, maybe a passing mention of removal, or broken treaties, and then that was treated as if it were enough.
And it isn't enough.
No, not even close.
Because if you want to understand this country honestly, you cannot do it without understanding the peoples who were here already. You can't understand the land, the conflicts, the myths, the promises, the betrayals, the institutions, the policies, or the moral contradictions of this country without understanding native peoples.
And not just native peoples in the past.
No, no, in the present too.
That's very important, folks. Native peoples are often, very often, spoken about as if they only exist in the history books, as if they comfortably belong to the past, as if they are symbols, memories, or cultural artifacts.
That's so bizarre, but it's true. They are living peoples, though. They are living nations. They are living communities, living traditions to this day,
Yes, folks, in the present tense, here and now.
present in art, present in music, present in ceremony, present in law, present in scholarship, present in family life, present in activism, present in environmental stewardship, present in grief, present in strength, presence in joy.
And present in ways of understanding this world that have often been ignored, dismissed, or perhaps even worse, borrowed without acknowledgement or respect.
Yep, that's another piece of this. A lot of people have encountered native traditions only through stereotypes, mascots, vague spiritual language, bits of popular culture, or forms of appropriation that strip away context and meaning.
You're right, and that can create a false feeling of familiarity. People know just enough so they can think, well, I know something about the Native Americans, when what they really know is a stack of repeated, simplified images.
And repeated images are not the same as understanding.
No, sometimes repeated images, my friends, are the very thing preventing understanding.
Oh, yeah, that's well said.
Thank you. And let me just take a moment. I should add something personal here, too. Living with cerebral palsy and exceptionality as a wheelchair user has made me especially sensitive to what happens when people are defined by assumptions, because I have been. When others think that they know who you are before they've listened to you, before they've encountered you as a full human being, now I want to be careful. I am not equating my difficulties or that experience with the historical experience of Native peoples. Those are not the same things, and it would be very arrogant of me to say so, but it has shaped in me a very strong concern for groups that are underrepresented, misrepresented, or reduced in the public mind.
And that's one of the things I appreciate so much about your work, Dr. Dean. You take that reduction seriously.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. I do, because reduction is never innocent. Once human beings are reduced to a single dimension, a caricature, they become so much easier to dismiss, easier to talk over instead of talking to, easier to manage, easier to exclude from the full moral imagination of a culture.
And that's part of why this series is not just historical for us. No, no, it's moral.
Yes,
It's about truth, certainly, but it's also about what kind of people we become when we accept distorted versions of other human beings.
and ladies and gentlemen, distorted history just doesn't get the past wrong. I'm a little choked up to say this here, but it trains the heart in the present.
That's exactly right.
It teaches people whose suffering counts, whose wisdom counts, who has the right to be heard, whose humanity counts, and whose voice counts.
And if we're honest, Native peoples have too often been denied full hearing in all those categories.
In so many ways, yes. They've been spoken over, interpreted from the outside, turned into symbols, obstacles, relics, mascots, and myths.
Or reduced to tragedy alone.
That's important too, because if the only story we tell is one of suffering, then we are denying agency and we are still telling an incomplete story.
Yeah, exactly. Injustice has to be named. The mistreatment has to be named. The theft, the coercion, the removal, the miseducation, the erasure, the contempt, those things have to be named. But people are never only the sum of what has been done to them.
No, they aren't. And if we tell the story that way, we're condescending outsiders. We risk flattening people all over again. So we must strive to avoid sentimentalizing or portraying indigenous people as powerless, childlike victims. Both errors have some truth in them, but they give a distorted and minimizing picture.
Right. Native peoples are not only victims of histories, no, they are also creators, teachers, leaders, artists, protectors of language, keepers of tradition, bearers of memory, and communities of extraordinary endurance.
And they are also not romantic abstractions for somebody else's fantasy.
Yeah, that's such a critical point that you bring up, Dr. Deneen.
Because there's another kind of distortion. It sounds respectful on the surface, but still denies full humanity, turning native peoples into mystical symbols, spiritual ornaments, projections, archetypes of some outsider fantasy. That's that is not respect either.
No, it isn't. That's still using people instead of meeting them.
Exactly.
So, what we hope to do in this series is something more honest. We want to talk about suffering without reducing people to suffering. We want to talk about spirituality without exoticizing that. We want to talk about achievement without turning it into tokenism. We want to talk about history without pretending it is safely over. And we want to talk about living traditions as living traditions, not as decorations for somebody else's imagination.
And again, folks, one way we will try to do that is by being specific whenever possible, naming nations, naming places, recognizing languages, distinguishing traditions, because specificity is one of the ways you resist erasure.
And one of the ways that you practice respect.
Yes.
I also think this matters because the moral health of a society can be measured by how honestly it tells the stories of the people it has pushed aside.
Dr. Weaver, I think that's exactly right.
If a society can only celebrate itself, it becomes very shallow. If it cannot face the harm it has done, it becomes dishonest. And if it learns to diminish any group of people, it becomes less human.
Less human. That's the right phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do believe that deeply because we all suffer when empathy narrows. We all suffer when truth is traded for convenience. We all suffer when history is cleaned up so thoroughly that conscience no longer has anything to push against.
And listeners, you may hear this and think, I didn't know much about this, or I may have learned a version that was too simple.
And if that's you, that's no reason to pull back.
And no, it's a reason to lean in.
Yeah, this series is not meant to shame people for not knowing enough. It's meant to invite people into a better kind of knowing,
And more careful knowing.
a more truthful knowing.
At its core, a more humane knowing.
and one that makes room for complexity.
Because complexity is not the enemy of understanding. Very often it is understanding.
That's a pretty good way to put that.
Thank you, my friend.
And we should probably say plainly that we know no series like this can cover everything. There is too much history, too much diversity, too much pain, too much beauty, too much survival, too much living reality to pretend that a few episodes could ever be comprehensive.
That's true, ladies and gentlemen, but I want to make something else very clear. But not being able to say everything is not an excuse to say nothing.
No, absolutely not. It means we begin carefully and honestly and with humility.
So, in the episodes ahead, we'll be exploring Native American culture, spirituality, achievements, historical wrongs, living traditions, and the many ways Native peoples have been misunderstood and endured.
And whenever possible, we'll ground those conversations in specific nations, specific regions, specific languages, and specific traditions because people deserve to be known with more care than a stereotype allows.
To the Native peoples whose histories have too often been flattened, whose cultures have too often been misread, and whose presence has too often been treated as though it belongs only to the past as side actors in someone else's story, we offer this series in a spirit of gratitude and respect.
And to our listeners, come with curiosity.
Come with humility.
Come ready to learn with us,
Come ready sometimes to unlearn.
to unlearn with us too. Yes. Come ready to hear stories that may be deeper, harder, and yeah, more beautiful than the ones you've been given before.
Whenever we restore the humanity of people who have been diminished, we don't just see them more clearly.
We become more capable of seeing one another clearly.
And just maybe, more capable of telling the truth about ourselves.
Ooh, that's a tough one, but it's a good one and something that we hope to enhance. So, this is Things You Don't Know. And this is the introduction to this series that I'm really, really excited about. So, for Dr. Deneen and myself, I say, come back. It's going to be a really fun journey. So, let's begin. Bye for now.